Hi guys, so I'm going to talk about picking again today, and it is my belief that absolutely everybody can make alternate picking work to a point where they want to increase their speed. No matter how many years you've been playing guitar, you might feel that picking is just something that you're never going to get, that it's something that other people can do but you can't do, and you don't understand what the magic ingredient is. The thing is, everybody can do it. I'm going to show you the ingredients that you need to make this work, and barring an actual physical, disability or something with your arm, there is no reason on earth why you absolutely cannot make this work. All you just need to do is apply what I'm going to talk about consistently, and it will work. It's pretty simple when we get down to it. So let's take a closer look. So one of the biggest issues in guitar playing is that people are not able to make decent progress in picking, because they're not able to develop a reliable, sustainable, usable tremolo picking technique before anything else. Trust me when I say that a usable tremolo picking action is the first step to developing your picking technique. If you don't have this, then you've skipped the most basic, fundamental aspect of picking straight away. When we talk about tremolo picking, it refers to continuous, fast, alternate picking on one string with minimal input from the fretting hand. Of course, it doesn't sound very musical or interesting, so it's understandable why people don't spend much time on it. But the reason why it's so important is this. You might spend months or even years trying to learn and improve using picking licks, and you don't even know whether the picking mechanics you've chosen even have the potential for higher speeds. Imagine if you spend months building up slowly from 60 beats per minute to 90 beats per minute, trying to play everything perfectly, only to discover that your technique falls apart completely and doesn't allow you anything over that tempo. So you could be using a flawed and unreliable picking mechanic, you could be holding the pick in an unreliable grip, and you might not find those things out until you spent years fruitlessly trying to forge ahead with them and getting nowhere. So the first thing you need to establish is whether your picking action has the potential for higher speeds. And the only way to do that is by going there and feeling those tempos out for yourself. Our bodies are incredibly capable machines. You create the demand, it finds what it needs to do to meet it. Now, let's talk about the physical mechanics. There's different ways of approaching the strings with your hand, and the angle at which your hand approaches the strings will dictate how effective your picking is. All right? So you could have different hand angles like this. You can come in there, here, there, everywhere. However, to feel the effects of these different hand positions, you first need to put the pick to the strings, okay? So choose one string. It doesn't matter where it is. It could be in the middle, G string, whatever. I'm just going to do these examples on the high E. And just fret a note. I'll choose somewhere in the middle where your arm is most relaxed rather than at one extreme of the neck. Yeah, because you're just going to be a bit more tense if you're holding your arm out at a different angle. So just choose somewhere there, like 12th fret maybe. So when it comes to alternate picking, we're taught in a very exaggerated way, which shows an obvious up and down movement with quite a lot of pick treble. Yeah, now this is fine for low and moderate speeds. The thing is, the faster you go, you don't want to be doing that. Picking faster isn't about moving your hand in the same arc even quicker. The secret is this: have the goal of keeping your pick in contact with the string at all times. So when you pick down through the string, the pick rests on the other side of that same string. When you pick the upstroke, the pick rests on the upper side of that string. Like this. Now you're not going to be doing this at low to moderate speeds, you don't have to, yeah? That's why we can get away with this nice level of pick treble. But this is something that is going to help you when you start to crank up the tempo. To simplify this, just imagine that when you're playing alternating up and down strokes, you're keeping your pick on the string, yeah, rather than thinking about picking through it. See, this is picking through the string, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and that's fine, right? But this is just a psychological reference point which really might help you reduce the distance of travel, because that's actually what you need in order to speed up. So you're picking on the string. Think about that. Pick on the string, not necessarily through it. So when you try to push the tempo a little bit, don't think about moving your hand faster, up, down, in the same arc. think instead about getting that pick tip over the other side of the string as quick as possible. And pretending that your pick is always in contact with the strings is one way of doing that. See, if I pick at this moderate tempo, and you can see I've got quite a bit of pick travel there. My pick's going through and up and down. It's traveling quite away from the strings. Now, if I want to speed up, I don't want to keep that same distance. My pick is going to have to come back in the opposite direction quicker. So how do I do that? Well, reduce the amount of distance that I'm traveling away from the strings. So that's why we're keeping the pick in contact with the strings. Or if not exactly in contact, we're imagining that we're keeping it in contact, and that's going to help us go from doing this to doing this. Yeah. Okay. So as you start doing this, you'll want to experiment with moving your hand position around. So turn your wrist outwards, turn it inwards, adjust the height of the hand. Are you coming in from way above, or in the middle, or even way down here? One thing I'm just going to mention as well, which gives people a lot of problems, is when they come in too far over the top, like this. So instead of being sort of somewhere neutral like that, they're sort of really over the top. And when they pick up and down strokes, it's not so much up and down, it's more back and forth. And they get this scraping motion across the strings, which is just really inefficient, and it's going to really hold you back from making any progress, because you're sort of going back and forth across the string. And when the pick comes into contact with the strings, it's almost sliding across it before coming out the other side. So try and avoid doing that if you can. Right, when it comes to the hand position, people mention the pick slant, which can be a useful tool to identify what kind of hand position you're using. I don't focus on the pick slant itself, because the pick slant is only the result of your hand position. It doesn't actually drive the picking motion. You could deliberately try to assume a downward pick slant, for example, but that still doesn't give you the actual physical mechanics to pick. That still has to come from you. You can have a downward pick slant and still have an ineffective picking mechanic. Say, let's take a downward pick slant, but I'm going to assume a picking mechanic which doesn't work for me. I'm going to try and drive it through the thumb and fingers. Right? Now I've got a downward pick slant, but I'm still not using an effective picking mechanic. Okay? So it's getting the hand position working right, which is going to help you with this. So try not to over-focus on the slant of the pick itself. It's more about the way the muscles move. The role of pick slanting only really becomes important when crossing strings, and that's because it enables you to manipulate the pick so it avoids contacting the strings that you don't want, okay? But it still doesn't create the picking motion itself. So the picking motion, this is what we need. So that's why we're working on tremolo picking first, and that's why you're going to experiment with different hand positions. So just keep doing that and find the place which enables you to just move the pick through the string and keeping it in contact as close as possible. Find the place which enables you to do that the best. Whether it's down there, however you do it. Okay? And this is the part that you've really got to put in the time with, okay? Don't just do it for 5 minutes and say, oh, I'm not getting it, and then give up. Right? This really does require experimentation. You will find a point where the pick just moves through the string better than any other position, and your hand and arm are kind of working in tandem to create some sort of rotational motion or whatever sort of motion it is, okay? So as you're doing this, keep trying to pick up and down and keeping the pick in close contact with the string. Try to reduce the amount of travel and think about changing the direction of the pick rapidly and reducing that distance. As you do so, you'll naturally start to speed up, okay? When this happens, you're going to start to feel it physically. And this is the point in which most people give up and go, whoa, that's not right. Yeah? Why do most people give up at this point? Because of conditioning. You see, certain things get lost in translation, so when teachers give advice about reducing tension and being relaxed, this gets taken a little bit too literally. So the student interprets this as, I shouldn't be feeling anything at all. I should be putting in zero effort, and my hand should magically get faster and faster over time if I do this same thing for long enough. Before I go any further, I'm not advocating that you just furiously try and pick as fast as you can and tense up your arm and move it like an iron bar. What I am going to say though is that the one thing that prevents people from unlocking their speed is that they're not willing to take that leap of faith. There's some sort of psychological hurdle that won't allow them to let go and take a leap into the ultra zone. I'm going to borrow a term from Steve Vai. Let's call it the ultra zone, right? It's the same thing with string crossing. You can be so focused on trying to be perfect and gentle to the point where you're conditioned to avoid putting in any effort whatsoever. You become a gentle, tentative player. Whilst you do need to eliminate unwanted tension and be as relaxed as you can be, you can still work on refining those aspects. But first you need to access the raw power of the technique, right? So you need to feel it and start building it whilst refining it as you go along. I had a student come to me who was never able to pick 16th notes over 110 beats per minute. He had one lesson with me and a few days later he's already cracking out reps at 170 beats per minute. What made the difference? He did exactly what I've been talking about. He concentrated on keeping the pick as close to the string as possible. Instead of trying to speed up the hand motion only, he kept adjusting his hand to find out which position gave him the best result, and he let go of the need to be perfect, which allowed him to take that psychological leap towards playing faster. This third aspect, the mental aspect, is the one thing you cannot do this without. You can try to apply those first two elements, but unless you're willing to break with your psychological conditioning of being a gentle, polite player, you won't break through your speed barriers. Whilst I'm here as well, the word speed conjures up all sorts of things. So look, just because we're talking about increasing speed doesn't mean that people like myself and people who watch these videos are only interested in mindless speed. You may be someone who just wants to go from 130 to 160 beats per minute, right? You might play country or bluegrass and just need to go over that hurdle. Whatever genre you play, yeah? It's just about giving you something that's going to help you. So increasing speed isn't about an obsession with speed. It's just technical advice for anybody who needs it to overcome any limitations that are preventing them playing the music that they want. This stuff's obvious. I shouldn't have to say this, but you know what some people are like. They're a bit weird about this sort of shit. So there you go. So the next point I'm going to make is this. Some of you might be able to do bursts of speed for certain licks, but you're not able to apply it to other licks for some reason. What sometimes happens is that people can tremolo pick fast, but don't notice that the way they pick fast is different to the way they pick when playing slowly. And this is very, very common, because I would say most of us don't pick the same way slowly as we do when going fast. Why would we? When we're playing slow, we've got all this time to swing our hands about, take a nice relaxed pick stroke and roll the wrists, use a bit of thumb, pulling, finger movement. And when we're going faster, there's less time for that. Our bodies have to find the most direct route from point A to point B, so it gets rid of any extras. So just be aware of that. You might already be able to tremolo pick fast, but you haven't figured out why you can't apply it to actual licks. So just check that you're not doing something completely different when you slow it down, like hitting the wrong string, like I just did there. Okay? I'm sure you're probably wondering how you should practice this and for how long, okay? Because this, is all well getting the advice, but people are like, okay, how do I practice it, Ben? Well, it's your lucky day. So for the first few days, I just focus on finding your tremolo picking motion and seeing how it feels, okay? So do all the things I said about, get the feel of it. And take note of what your hand is doing so you can go back to it the next day and find it again each time. So you do need to be observant here, because you want to try and recreate that same thing every day. Once you start getting the feel for it, you can bring in the metronome and start giving yourself a bit of a challenge. Find out where your current speed is. So let's say it's 130 beats per minute. You might be able to go to 150 maybe for like one bar only, just a few seconds. Let's say you bump it up to 150 and you can just about manage 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you got to stop, yeah, and recuperate. It's not about continuous playing at this point. It's just acclimatizing yourselves to short bursts. The higher tempos like 150, 160 are going to be good places to feel the burn for short periods. But if your threshold is 130 beats per minute, let's say you can play comfortably at that, and anything over that is a challenge. Then come down to somewhere like 140 and do longer reps there. So instead of one bar, try and keep it going for 2, 3, maybe even 4 bars at 140. The tempos which are closest to your current ability, you can cycle for longer. The higher tempos are going to be short duration only. You only need a few minutes of this as well, so you don't need to go crazy. It's like, I don't know, it's like riding a bike. The only way to do it is to jump on and do it. But you don't go out and try and cycle the Tour de France. It's about acclimatizing yourself to the actual motions that you were going to be using, but we're doing it in small increments so it's manageable and we don't burn out. So 3 or 4 minutes can be enough to feel the burn, make some gains in this area. The next day you go back and maybe you'll be able to do 2 bars at 150. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, you might be able to push it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah? So you'll find that you'll be able to gradually increase the time you spend in the higher speeds, just a few seconds at a time. But this is how it's done. not years and years of bashing away at mediocre tempos and going up in increments of 2 beats per minute every week. All right? So that's it. It's really quite simple when you get down to it. I swear to you, the hardest thing about this is the mental aspect of letting go of the way you think it should be. Because, you know, you've seen people say about the picking should look like this, it should feel like this, blah, blah, blah. Let go of the way you think it should be and just go and find what is. But I can tell you to do this. The real question is, are you going to let yourself? So give yourself permission to find what works without judgment and preconceived ideas. That's how somebody can go from 110 beats per minute to 170 beats per minute in a matter of days. So seeing as we're talking about picking, I've got a free downloadable video course called The Warm-Up, which you can get right now from my site, and it's got a great picking exercise that drills all the string crossing motions that you're going to encounter. I'll put the link below as well, so you can just go and check it out. Whilst you're there, you'll also see a course called Badass Alternate Picking. I recommend you grab a copy of that because it will take what you've learned in this video and apply it to some really effective drills that will get you moving to the next level. My whole approach is about finding what works and ignoring what doesn't. You know, it's kind of like the Bruce Lee way of approaching things. So if you want the information and guidance on all the physical mechanics that make these techniques work, then go grab my courses because everything you need is in there, all right? So thanks for watching. Go and enjoy your guitar practice, and I'll see you guys next time.